Now, if we go to Mr. Kesh's paper in the KF Wikipedia, it was an article in the KF Plasma Times, actually, in December 2018, the creation of black holes. And it was released back in, March 12th of 2006, I think it is. So Mark had a question regarding this, and we were looking at that question in the Kesh Plasma Reactor Group yesterday. The question comes up here. Mr. Kesh discusses, black holes, and there's a lovely picture as well here of the coming together of two systems to create the black hole. And that's described in the actual text here as well. The part in your paper, Mr. Kesh, was as the black hole grows bigger and its gravitational forces take over, then a black hole becomes a predator for parts of its galaxy. They become vast eating machines of the debris and stars and planets, and this is exactly what is to be expected of them. The black holes originally created totally by chance. There are no patterns in their creation. They're simply a creation or an outcome of natural interaction between two or more passive magnetic fields or matters in motion within the galaxy or the universe. So part of Mark's question is the idea that you've talked about the universe or space being a peaceful place where we don't have the stealing of energies and whatnot, the things that we have on Earth and with humans. So in the process of the black hole's growth, is it consuming souls? It's consuming, for example, a star. Is it we are told, or maybe we sense that a star has a soul. So if this star is getting sucked into a black hole, what happens to the soul of that star? And why are black holes allowed to consume souls if it is a peaceful universe? I guess that's the bottom line.
This goes back to humanity, doesn't it?
Well, it's always our perception of things. Yes.
Once the physical part added to is consumed by, we don't look at it that it becomes part of.
Well, I was going to say, is a black hole a transmutation device, in effect? So it separates the soul from the physicality.
No, really. It still is in the same dimension. It's a bigger soup.
Okay.
It's a bigger soup with more fields added to. It's like, put it this way, it's like having a herd of one type of animals, but another herd inside it. There are still two different animals, but they're running in the same path. They keep, in essence, this is the beauty with plasma, understanding of interaction of magnetic fields. The same of the same all come together the same when it comes to that point of the plasma. But the same, what does this mean? This means that, let's say if you have let's give it a strength 9, 10, 20 and 100. When you bring, let's say a star, which has 2 of the 10 and 4 of the 5, that 2 of the 10 goes into the 10th strength, 2 added to that, and 5. They don't disappear. They strengthen that structure. When the next comes with 5 times of the 10, it'll add to that 2, so the whole structure gets stronger. And this is the beauty with the plasma. You don't steal, you add yourself an addition to what is there. And at the same time, it reaches a point that this, let's say this 20 of 10 strength, they receive another 5, they need a space war. So they open up, they open a space gap between the other fields. And this gives the expansion or increasing the size of the, what you call the black hole. But this black hole, at the same time as it's the fields with other stars coming in, interacts. And that interaction creates a combination of releasing fields out. Because I don't have more space than 20. Now I receive 2 more, I have to give out. And that becomes the source of the creation, what comes out, that it becomes another creation of a star in a galaxy. I bring everything in, and in amalgamation of what you bring in, I have more which I don't need, and I become the source of life. I radiate at higher strength because the lower strengths are already built up, structured. And this is the beauty with the black holes. This is why we don't see immediately life around them, but the field they release in the galaxy in a further distances, as these strengths slow down, lead to creation of new life, new stars, new cycle. They don't get squeezed. They release, there's a size to of the accommodating fields together, because if you have 20 of 10, it has to accommodate 5 of the strength 1. If strength 1 comes in, that extra has to find itself in field strength in the dimension of releasing out to make accommodation for the next one. Is packing it together, and how you pack it. We show this very clearly, if you understand it, in some of the teaching, in testing, we show this. And this is the whole structure of building an aircraft, by fields. We pack enough fields into the middle, that the middle becomes like a black hole. And then that black hole, in expanding out, releasing its fields, creates a physical dimension of the craft. Or we create a very high intention of fields in the center, and in adding into the top of it, we create manifestation of the physicality. It's like you create a light, there's a light, and then you spread the smoke on the top, and then you see the laser beams. If you've seen that, this is how most of the large scale flying objects in the universe are created. There is no aircraft hangars 2-3 kilometers wide and we build this craft. Once you create the physical structure, when you look at in creating, you create a black hole in the center. And you create a condition of radiating fields. Then you create a condition of a different strength fields, which you interact, you create condition for this to interact with these fields. And this condition creates the shape of the craft. That's how you build spaceships in kilometers diameter. You strengthen the central line, you strengthen the central field force in the center, And then you introduce fields in the surrounding, and you build the first layer. And that, according to that field listing and its connection to the center, gives you the shape. And then you want to make divisions. You want to make, let's say, a hall or a space. You create again that in this environment. You want different shape of a space. You create that environment there. Because these fields you create are connected to the field strength. It's very much like the spider, what we saw in the
I
spider
was
web.
just going to mention that your drawing is starting to look like the spider web.
This is how it works.
Mm-hmm.
We have developed this system, sits in Keshe Foundation laboratories now. It's not something to be done. We create a field pressure in the center, and we introduce additional fields, which with interaction with this, we see the structure built. This is how you build UFOs. You don't get aluminium sheets and panels and screw them the way you do with aircrafts. Doesn't exist in the universe. This is what Keshe Foundation laboratories are working on. This is what it'll come out to be seen. This is what will be shown in Iran. We create a central field force. In that central field force, then we introduce materials of field forces which are made of and are part of, and that interaction with the central will create that spider web. And depending on where we introduce this additional field, give us the shape, because it's away from the bottom. So the bottom has to be closer. It creates the shape of the UFO. This is how the spaceships are made. And then you create walls, readings in the patterns. I especially put this in the patterns, creating walls, separation, and partitions. You introduce different field strength, different material, but still connected to the center fields, to the black hole. We absorb all the fields in, we create that condition of the central field, and by expanding, we interact with it. We decide where we want to interact with. If we put it here, we interact with the fields here, where the center is here. If we decide to put our fields interaction here, you get a bigger spacecraft. This system is on the table, it's getting tested. And in some tests, our research people see, it's like, because that's the first phase, they see like a steam coming up. Because it's the beginning of the manifestation, and the steam with the field forces will bend and will start making the shape. Our technology at the moment, they see the steam's coming up, the field's getting built up. And then we dictate where we hit it, where hit it, but don't forget this is dynamic. And in dynamic structure of this, with the fields we introduce in a way, will give you the shape. We create that black hole. Creation of development of the UFOs, what you call UFOs, what called transportation in dimension of the fields, because don't forget, I never learned how to do this. Let me see how am I going to do this. I want to make it new. How to use this. That help us. Okay. Oh, that's what it does. Send something new. You have to understand, to create this dimension of the shape of a UFO is the same as when you land on the moon. You still have your craft. Now you want to go to see how the moon feels like walking on the surface. You expand the fields of the system to that dimension. Then, when you're on the surface of the moon, above you have a protection. But because your aircraft is sitting on the ground, you have the field force underneath the ground too to make that shape of UFO. So you walk on the surface as you're in the Earth atmospheric. It's not making a dome only on the top, it's creating a field underneath too, that on the surface you stand, you have the field strength, magnetic field strength of the gravitational field up there. That's how it works. It's not just making a dome, making a dome cover. You make it the same as we saw, another field underneath of it. It's just different understanding of the use of the same principle. In the crafts, which is now is lined up to be shown in Iran, you will see this. We bring a suitcase, and this suitcase we create different field strength on it. And this field strength, with what we dictate, will create the shape. Because this point of introduction of this is different than this one, so to close the gap, it has to connect. So through its dynamic system, you get the shape of UFO. But this system, inside it, sits a soul, because it's a field interaction. We do the same on the moon. When we go on the moon, now this space, the green one, becomes this. If I can find the right color that you can show in this, it becomes this. And now we introduce another point of interaction. We increase the dome, but you still have the bottom half to it. Now this space has come to this, and now this new space is created from there. This is how you increase your dome size in the space. That here you can have gravitational magnetic field of 1G, that man can exist in it, can live on the moon. Here, outside the boundary, you hop and jump like a rabbit you do on the moon. Here you live atmospheric conditions. You don't need to wear a spacesuit. We don't wear a spacesuit when we are in the aircraft, do we? We travel. Now we create the same condition. Here we create magnetic field 1G. But because this is in a dynamic rotation, because of its central black hole, does not matter what speed this goes. This is the entity itself. You're that water in the bowl. Doesn't matter how fast that bowl goes, you see the water inside it. And understanding the paper of the black hole is the same as when I published the first book, the Universal Order of Creation of Matter. The most important part is release first. The most important part of any traveling system, any system existence, even within your own soul, there is a black hole. That's why you absorb fields. It has a gravity which decides what is absorbed. There is no entity in the universe which does not have a center, which we call the creation of soul of the creator, if you want to call it, that has the capability to absorb all the fields of the universe, interact with, and the interaction of it on a feedback becomes manifestation of physicality of it. Because it does not come, a field does not come out like this. a field from the center comes out like this. Because once it's out, the magnetic field flow, winds will force it to, and then it pushes it to. And this is the beauty of it. And what we see is that this principle follows, this structure follows. And what we see, it's important for us to understand, is the principle of the existence. When a field gets to its position and leads to its expansion or repulsion, does not go out straight. Is in the wind flow of the magnetic fields of the universe. And the universe has a dimensional field flow. You don't go this way. Your motion on expansion is circular. And that's why plasmas are always dynamic. Because the external fields which are in motion force this interaction, force this dimensional directional field forces. A black hole is the center of life. It has to absorb to give. It receives totality, whatever it is, and then in what it doesn't need, it releases. And what it releases in interaction with the environment becomes the manifestation of life. That's how it works. And depending on what field the strength is, there's the creation of a solar system here, another solar system there, a galaxy in the universe, or your eye, or your leg in the body of the man. If you look, I always said there's a beautiful understanding of it if you understand it. The body of the man is like two chopsticks. Hinged together. And in that process, the hinging comes to what we call the soul of the man. You build this side of the brain with this side of the body. This side of the brain with this side of the body. And the soul, this is why when you expand the soul of the man, you get what we call the physicality of the man. This, if you look at the brain of the man and the physicality of the man, the position, the shape of the two halves of the brain, and their position from the central soul dictates the height and the shape of the man and its structure. If you put brain of the people of the same height, the same behavior together, you see they create the same physicality. Because it has to balance off. You're on a, you know, when you go to a park, you sit on a seesaw. What you put here dictates your distance. You come on up and down and how it shapes. That seesaw is turned the sideways, is the soul of the man. What you put in here, you get the expansion here. And depends how it moves. And it's got the limitation because it's got other half. This is why the people of the same shape, same size, same thing, have the same characteristics, because that's how the field is. The position of the fields of the brain decides your eyes, your behavior, your trust, your emotion. And that all comes down to where this black hole was created, how this black hole in the soul of the man was created. Because when it absorbs from the womb of the mother, and then it dictates what gives out, and it starts shaping the man. Any other question?